Good afternoon. This is the Quimbee CLE presentation entitled General Liability Insurance Coverage for Data Breaches. So before we begin, and we're now on slide number 2, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Tay Andrews. I am a Senior Managing Associate here at Passage LLP. And in terms of just a little bit of background about me, I have exclusively represented policyholders throughout my career to date in a variety of disputes, many of them under what are called general liability or commercial general liability policies, which is actually something we're going to talk about in detail during the presentation today. In addition to directors and officers insurance policies, errors and omissions or professional liability insurance policies, and also a variety of other types of insurance policies. So that's my background as an attorney, and that's what we're going to be discussing today is a specific type of insurance and how the basic coverage works, and then we're also going to analyze how that coverage applies to data breach losses. And to do that, we're going to talk about insurance coverage for a data breach that Target suffered back in 2013. So that's a little bit of information about me, and we are now going to transition to slide number 3. All right. So before we can go a little bit further here, I do have to provide a disclaimer, and here's what that disclaimer is. So the views that I express in this program are not those of my employer or any clients or any other organization, and the opinions that I express in this presentation also do not constitute legal advice, nor do they constitute risk management advice. So the views that we're going to discuss during this presentation are for educational purposes only, and they are provided only for use during this session. All right, well, we are now on slide number 4. And before we get into the nitty-gritty or the details of the presentation, I thought we would just provide a brief overview. So essentially, this presentation is going to have 2 main parts with several subparts. But in terms of just sort of framework for the presentation, we're going to spend roughly the first half talking about coverage. And what I mean by that is we're going to be focusing today on a very specific type of insurance policy. We're going to be discussing what is called a commercial general liability policy, or a CGL policy. And what's important about these types of policies to understand is that many businesses, many companies have these kinds of insurance policies, and they are also drafted in a standard issue manner. And what that means is many of these companies have literally the same policy language or substantially similar policy language. And so coverage decisions regarding the interpretation or the construction, the meaning of what those policies cover, they can have very important and wide-ranging effects for other policyholders because, again, they have the same policy language or very similar policy language. So what one court rules in terms of what the policy covers will have many far-reaching implications for other policyholders or other insureds. So that's what we're going to spend the first half of the presentation discussing, and we're going to get into the details, sort of at a very granular level, like what these policies cover. We're going to talk about the insuring agreements. We're going to talk about the various definitions of defined terms in those policies. We're also going to talk about a few policy exclusions, which are clauses in the policy that remove coverage for certain risks. And we're also going to talk about 2 of the main duties that an insurer has that it is legally obligated to provide to its policyholder. So we're going to talk about the duty to defend. We're also going to discuss an insurer's duty to indemnify. And again, all of this will take place during the first half or so of this presentation. The second half, what we're going to talk about is the recent decision in the Target case, which again ties back to a data breach that occurred in 2013. We're going to talk about how CGL policies, such as Target's, as an example, can cover losses associated with the data breach. And we're also going to apply the concepts that we talked about in the first half and show how they applied and were at issue in the Target case. So that's sort of, we'll call it like sort of part 2A. In part 2B, and this is another key part of the presentation, we're going to discuss the implications of that target decision for other policyholders. And again, that all ties back to what I was saying earlier, which is that because a lot of these policies have the same, literally identical or substantially similar policy language, coverage decisions can be very important because they help define or shape the contours of what these policies cover. And in that regard, they have tremendous implications for other policyholders with the same or very similar policy language.